Chris McClendon. I'm with the McKinney Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, hello.
Hello.
Mostly ladies. But my name is Chef Chris McClendon. I'm with the McKinney Foundation, and I'll be showing you a couple different variations of some things that we're accustomed to eating, and some healthier alternatives to making some different southern staples and things of that nature. The first thing I'm going to demo is a fruit chutney. Some of you have heard of a chutney before. Some of you may have not heard of a chutney before. But a chutney is it's a cooked fruit dressing or relish, or it would be comparable to cranberry sauce in essence. So you can make it with peaches, you can make it with apples, you can make it with any fruit that has a bit of a body or a bite to it. Today I'm going to be doing a pear and cranberry chutney. The ingredients that I'm going to be using are pears, cranberries, chopped ginger, chopped shallots, a touch of olive oil, and mustard seed. Now, the combination may sound weird at first, but I'll explain why all of those components make sense. And the reason why I do that, as opposed to just handing you a recipe, is because what if you don't have cranberries? You'll feel like, well, maybe I can't make it. I don't have cranberries. But if I understand to you what the cranberries do to the dish, then you'll say, oh, I can use cranberries, I can use cherries, dried cherries, I can use dried acai berries, I can use goji berries, and as long as you understand the process in which every component plays a part of the entire dish, it will make sense, and you'll be able to play around with it. And I'm a big believer in playing with your food. So don't feel confined to the recipe, don't feel confined to the ingredients that I use. I'm going to just merely show you the cooking method, and then you'll be able to use your own thing and put your own spin on it your own way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my pan hot, and I'm going to start peeling this pear. You can go old school, use a paring knife like Mommy used to do. I prefer to use a peeler. It takes off less flesh from the pear, so you get obviously more yield from the pear, so you're able to get more chutney. So you just peel the pear. It doesn't have to be perfect. If it's a little skin on it, it's just fine. Then you're just gonna do a medium to small dice on this. You're gonna make it look just like that. Anybody can see? All right. I'm gonna get a little olive oil in the bottom of my pan. Alright, get it going. And we're going to let the sugar start to break the pears down. You want the texture of this pear to be soft. You want it to have but a little bite to it. You don't want it to be mushy like applesauce. You kind of want it to be still apple or pearish or peachish or whatever fruit you use, but you don't want it to be completely mush. So I'm just getting a nice little color, a little caramelization. Caramelization in cooking is where basically you take sugar in anything and you put heat to it. So if you're cooking chicken breasts, everything has a little bit of natural juices or natural sugar in it. When you bring the sweetness to the surface and you give it a brown color, it's called caramelization. So if you're cooking onions and it turns brown, it's called caramelization. If you're cooking apples and they turn brown, you're cooking the sugars, the natural sugars in it. It's called caramelization. So I'm caramelizing my pears right now in just a touch of olive oil. You can use the healthiest thing to use personally is I try to stay away from the least amount of oils as possible. But if I do need to use a little bit of oil, I use a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, or I use something like a safflower oil, or maybe even like a sassafras oil. I use palm oil. That's very popular in West African cooking, and I just enjoy the flavors that they blend to the dish. So, okay, so I'm sauteing this, and then we're gonna add my shallots.
So what's shallots?
Shallots. Shallots are in the onion family. They look very similar to a red onion. And it's a mixture between, if you took a red onion and a garlic clove and had a baby, it'd be a shallot. Because shallots have a very garlicky tone to them, but they have the texture and bite and appearance and flavor of a red onion, but they're really small. You find them right in your grocery section of Lafayette Market.
Everything that Chef is using today can be found here in this grocery store, so that's the good part.
Good.
And that was one thing we wanted to emphasize here. I didn't want to come in and start bringing all of these imported ingredients, and because it's not feasible to the everyday things that are here. So what was important for the McKinney Foundation is for us to come in Lafayette Market and peruse their wonderful facility, see what ingredients they had, and come up with a menu that can basically give you guys just a different variation of some different things. Say for example, you may say, you know what, I don't really like onion in my chutney. I prefer to have no onion at all. You don't have to put onion in it. It still doesn't not make it a chutney because you take any one of these ingredients out. It's the cooking method in terms of breaking down the sugars and the fruit to create a relish. That's what makes it a chutney. So as long as you stay within those parameters, you can do whatever you want. Next I'm going to add is my dry cranberries and my ginger. Now, dry cranberries and the pears and the ginger. We're looking at flavor spectrum. So you have the pear, which is sweet and crunchy. You have the cranberry, which is tart and squishy. You have the ginger, which is a little bit crunchy and zesty. And then you have the shallot, which is a little more savory and soft. So the combination of those three together make a very pleasant flavor to me. And also, as you're tossing these things, and if you can see, you get a little brownness on the pear. That's the caramelization that you want. Just medium to high heat. And also, I add a sweetener to it for two reasons. Do you need to add a sweetener to it? No. So don't feel compelled. Well, some of us may be diabetic. Some of us may have special dietary concerns. You don't necessarily have to add any kind of sweetener to this particular dish. Today I used the agave nectar for this dish, and the reason why I went with the agave nectar because it has the lowest glycemic index of any sweetener on the planet. What do I mean by that? That means that if you're a person that's diabetic and you eat something that is full of sugar, it spikes your blood sugar up. For example, how many of you eaten something sweet before bed and woken up very fatigued and tired, and you never know, like, I got plenty of sleep but I'm still tired? What happens is when you eat something very sweet before bed, you spike your blood sugar, and then when it drops, your metabolism can't stabilize it, so you go from one extreme to the other. So when you wake up, you're groggy and fatigued, and you've been laying there the whole time. It's because it's affected your blood sugar. Now, if you would have eaten something with a low glycemic index, like an agave nectar, it won't spike your blood sugar. It'll stabilize itself, and you won't have to worry about the.
See what it looks like in your mouth? What is that?
They serve it. There are a lot of different brands of agave nectar. Domino makes one. There's a lot of different variations of it, so don't feel compelled to buy Domino, the brand.
Okay, so Chef, you use that if you want a little sugar, but the healthier is that better.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
You say that's a sugar substitute?
Yes.
That is
From the agave plant. Yep.
Okay. We encourage everybody to fill out the surveys and share your email address, because you can find the recipes through the McKinney Foundation Facebook page, the blog, and through the newsletters that you would get with your email address if you give it to her.
If you don't have the email, you'll mail it to us.
You know what? Do you have anybody that has access to a computer, or do you have access to a computer of any sort?
I do, but I don't use it.
Okay. You know what? We can talk to Tia and figure it out. But yep, right now everything is web based.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. This is the chutney that I'm making with the pears, cranberries, and shallots in here right now. Okay. The next thing I'm going to add is apple cider vinegar. Does it have to be apple cider vinegar? Absolutely not. You can add lemon juice. It can be lime juice. It could be red wine. It could be white wine. It could be anything that has a very high acidity. And what that does, that starts to break down it breaks down the body of the fruit. It makes it break down, but not completely turn into mush. And it kind of speeds up the process and adds a bit of a zinginess and sweetness to whatever you're making. So, my acid of preference is apple cider vinegar. You can use organic, you can use regular, whatever most feasible for you. I'm gonna add a fair amount. Could you add 2 cups and it still be fine? Absolutely. Could you add 3 cups and it still be fine? Absolutely. So this is the thing that I always love to emphasize. We're all different people, okay? And as we cook our food, I encourage you to do what feels comfortable to you. Because as long as you're doing what feels comfortable to you, you will continue to cook at home, which will keep you out of the fast food restaurants and keep you away from the short order cooking, so that you're able to enjoy a nice home cooked meal without feeling the burden or the stigma that comes along with having to do all of these steps. If you don't like dry cranberries, don't add dry cranberries. If you don't like pears, use apples. If you don't like apple cider vinegar, use lemons. Use whatever you like to achieve the flavor.
Okay, so Chef Chris, you saying I can make the same dish, but I don't have to use cranberries, all I have to use whatever kind of fruit I like.
I can revamp it right now. Instead of using pear, you can use apple. Instead of using dry cranberries, you can use yours with peaches and.
I'm good with peach.
Yep, with peaches, maybe some lime juice with the peaches and some dried cherries. Yeah, you can go on and on, and it's pretty much whatever you want. Now, this other thing that I'm adding, mustard seed. It adds a little pop to it. You know how when you ate the chutney, you had that little crunchy little pop to it? That's what the mustard seed does. I love mustard seed particularly for that reason. It doesn't add a mustardy flavor to it necessarily. It adds an essence of mustard, but at the same time giving you a different textural feel. And I don't think that people really realize how important texture plays in how we digest food and how we eat food. Things become more palatable and more pleasurable if they feel good in your mouth. And mustard seed kind of just adds a different texture that gives you a little bit of a variety. You don't particularly eat things with this kind of poppiness to it unless you're eating something like poppy seed or something. But when was the last time we ate poppy seed? You know, that's not something you eat often. So I add that because it definitely adds a one-up to the dish. So I'm gonna add this. And then I'm gonna add my agave nectar.
What's that stuff? Chris, like syrup?
This is the agave nectar. Now, has anyone heard of stevia before? Stevia? Stevia? Anyone heard of stevia? Stevia is a plant that they dry and grind to create sweetener. It's not like saccharin or anything. For example, saccharin is like sweet and low. That's saccharin. That's what they make sweet and low out of, saccharin. Stevia is a healthier alternative to an alternative sweetener, as opposed to honey or agave nectar, things of that nature. It comes from a plant. It's organic. It's raw, and it's a gift and a curse because it's extremely sweet. And if you add too much, it'll make your food bittersweet. It's this weird balance between just adding just a little bit to sweeten it, but not going overkill. It's not like sugar where you add it, it just becomes sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. It gets to a point with stevia where if you add too much of it, it'll become bitter. So if you ever use it, be very mindful that it's extremely strong and use it very sparingly.
Although Chef Chris is kind of mixing everything together right now, we will have details as far as how much to add on the recipe card, so you can still look at that to determine how much to go about using as far as the products.
Okay, guys, so you take this mixture, you put it in the casserole pan or leave it in this pan, wrap it, put it in the oven. 15 minutes later, you have yourself a chutney. You can have it on the side of nice grilled chicken, nice turkey. It goes particularly well with poultry. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Did you guys have some?
Yes, we did. It was
You
very
guys have
good.
any questions about it?
Very good. Now, you said put it in the oven how long?
You put it in the oven about 325 for about 15 minutes, 15-20 minutes or so.
325.
We also want to direct your attention to the board. It's just a few benefits of the chutney. If you look right up here at the top at the fruit, just to highlight some of the good things about it, it's less sugar than your typical cranberry sauce, which you get in a can. Like you say, you can play around with the ingredients and add or subtract or, kind of make it your own. So definitely take advantage of that with your fruits and your vegetables.
Good afternoon. My name is Tia McKinney. I'd like to thank you guys and let you know that there is a second segment that's going to be coming up from 1:30 to 2 o'clock where the chef is going to be cooking up different menus. But I also want to encourage you and to let you know the purpose of why we're doing this. Lafayette Foods, when they knew that there's an issue with obesity, they said they definitely wanted to do something about this. And our value partner said, let's find a way to provide nutrition information and education for our customers because they value you, they know that you are part of the community, and they know that your health is important to a thriving and healthy community. So we're doing this. The next session is at 1:30 to 2 o'clock. We also will be doing this again in December. So please, if you like what you've seen, fill out an evaluation form. Let us know what we did well. And if you want to see something different, please put that down. But your health is important to us, and we want to make sure that everyone knows how to make those simple substitutions to make healthy, nutritious meals for yourself and your family. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm sure we're all familiar with Thanksgiving turkey. We've all done it every year. I think that there's a few key points that's very important to making a very nutritious as well as delicious turkey. And typically what I would do is I would brine it. Unfortunately, brining adds a lot of sugar and salt to your product, and it'll still be delicious. However, you do add a little bit of the you change the nutritional value of it a little bit because you spike the sodium and you spike the sugar. So, well, my idea is instead of putting everything inside, put it on top, like most people do. But with this variation, what you do is you take a turkey breast. It can be either on the bone or off the bone. For the sake of conversation in this particular situation, I did it off the bone. So turkey breast off the bone, you rub it down with three things: a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of Dijon mustard, and some herbs, salt and pepper, and then you roast it in the oven. 350, 375. Easy peasy, right? Now here's the gotcha. As it's cooking, what happens is it releases juices. Most people let the juices run off, and then at the end you take the turkey out, throw the juice away, or maybe make gravy out of it or something like that. What I suggest that you do is you baste it. You lean it like this and you baste it as it's cooking. Come back in 20 minutes, get a little bit more of the liquid, put it back on there. Halfway through the cooking, you drizzle maple syrup on top of your turkey. Right. So once you drizzle the maple syrup on it, the reason why you drizzle the maple syrup on there halfway through the cooking is because you don't want the sugars to burn the exterior. Because what happens is when sugar has gone too far beyond its flash point, it has what's called you ever had creme brulee? Brulee is bittersweet, and that means when sugar has gone to beyond the point of hardball stage, when you make candy or something like that, and it begins to burn, and it creates a bitter flavor. In creme brulee, it's fine. On your turkey, not so much. So my suggestion is that you put it halfway through your cooking so you don't get that extra brown skin. Is nice and golden brown, the herbs shine through, the turkey's in really good condition. And then what you do is you still continue to baste. Then once the turkey is done, you take the turkey out of the pan and you rest it on the cutting board for 15 minutes or so. Allow the juices to settle. Because what happens is, how many times have you when food gonna be ready, you get the food out, you cut the turkey, juice is dripping all everywhere. If you allow it to rest, what will happen is that those juices will absorb themselves back into the actual meat and tissues of the meat. But if you cut it right out of the oven, it'll drip and the juice everywhere. And then I'm not saying that it won't still be a little bit moist, but you definitely lose a lot of moisture by cutting it prematurely. So out of the oven, let it rest. Take the juices, put them in the pot, reduce it, medium heat, and let those syrups and natural juices reduce down. Once that turkey's nice and golden brown and it's resting for 15 minutes, put a nice slice on it. Take that reduced juice, pour it on top. You have yourself maple peppered turkey breast for the holiday.
Oh, very
Congratulations.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have delicious.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Very good. Okay. That's very good.
Good afternoon and welcome, shoppers. It is 1:30. We've got Chef Chris. My name is Tia McKinney, and I'm with the McKinney Foundation. And we are here because we've launched our campaign to eliminate childhood obesity. And your grocer, Lafayette Foods, is proud to present this healthy cooking demonstration because they care about you and they definitely want you to prepare healthy, nutritious food for yourself and for your families. So, with that said, all recipes can be sent via email. Please make sure you sign up and leave your email on our sign-up sheet. We will be making sure that we send these out to you right after this. And if you'd like to, we can also send you our monthly newsletters. So please feel free to ask questions. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Chef Chris McClendon.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chef Chris McClendon with the McKinney Foundation. I'll be showing you two things. I'll be showing you first a quinoa pilaf, which is going to take 2 seconds, and then I'll show you the West African vegetable stew and the kind of philosophy behind the West African cooking. First things first, quinoa pilaf. Has anyone heard of quinoa before? Okay, we got one in the house. Okay. Quinoa is a grain. It's very similar to rice, barley, anything else, except it's the only grain on the planet that has the 7 amino acids that are the building blocks of protein. So, what it means is that if you're a person that is on a vegan, vegetarian diet, you're still able to get a great source of protein from a grain, which is quinoa. It's sort of a blank canvas. It doesn't have a very bold flavor, as you guys can see. It's you can make it spicy, you can make it nutty, you can make it savory, you can make it sweet. You can eat it cold, you can eat it hot with the vinaigrette. You can do something as simple as taking cooked quinoa, chilling it, adding it with the vinaigrette, maybe some chopped wilted greens, like for example some arugula, some spinach, maybe some chopped onions, some carrots, and make a cold salad. Or you can eat it hot with some scallions like we have here, or you can eat it hot with some mirepoix, some tomatoes, or some onions, carrots, celery, all that good stuff. And it's a very diverse and versatile grain, much like plain white rice is, except it's 10 times more healthy. The cooking method to cooking quinoa is very similar to rice as well. Anytime you make any kind of grain, there's 2 things you need to know. When you're making a white rice, it's a 1 to 1.5 ratio. When you're making a brown rice, it's a 2 to 1 ratio. Quinoa is the exception. Quinoa absorbs itself, so it's a 1 to 1 ratio. So if you add 1 cup of liquid, it's 1 cup of quinoa, vice versa. And you can add any liquid to it. You can add 1 cup of quinoa, 1 cup of chicken stock, 1 cup of veg stock, 1 cup of gravy, 1 cup of anything liquid to quinoa, and it will absorb the flavor of whatever you're making. Okay? And what I did here today with the quinoa, you need either a pot or you could do it in the oven, which I did. It's the easiest way to do it. What you do is you get your quinoa, you put it in a Pyrex pan, Add your water, add your seasonings, cover it, put it in the oven. Come back in 20 minutes and quinoa's done. It's not rocket science at all. It's very, very, very simple. It's very nutritious, and it's very versatile. So that's done with the quinoa. Now we're on to the West African vegetable stew. Is anyone familiar with Indian food? Has anyone had Indian cuisine? Has anyone had any Hindu food before? Has anyone had any Jamaican food? Caribbean food? Well, all those things are derivatives of West African food. Based on my research, I found that most recipes and most styles of food originated in West Africa, and their origins trace all the way back to West Africa. So a lot of the same cooking principles and the same ingredient implications that they apply in Brazilian cooking, even Thai food, like the way they utilize a lot of different herbs and spices and things of that nature. It's very similar to West African cooking. One of the staples in, well, there's 3 staples in West African cooking. Chili flakes, chili peppers, usually has cinnamon, peppers. They play on a lot of spices. Where most people, and based on American culture, or as we consider it to be the Western diet, we tend to eat things like, French toast and pancakes and savory things, and we save cinnamon for things that are either dessert-driven or breakfast-driven. In African culture, cinnamon is just as prominent as black pepper, garlic powder, anything else. They use a lot of things that, like I said, save for more sweet or breakfast-driven things. Nutmeg, cinnamon, coriander, all of these very sweet, aroma, aromatic, floral kind of smells and tastes they implement in a lot of their food. What I'm using here is I'm using diced yellow pepper, carrots, sweet potato, celery, onions, diced tomato, chopped scallions, and okra. You can use fresh okra, you can use frozen okra, you can use cut okra, you can use whole okra. We're going to use the okra. What the okra is going to do is bind it all together. How many of you eaten okra before? I'm sure all of us have eaten okra before. Has anyone stewed okra before? I'm sure all of us have eaten stewed okra before. Well, when okra's cooked, it releases that, I'm not going to get all technical, but the slimy stuff and make it all stroke and rope, as they call it in the South. That sticky ropiness, what it does is it coats your palate, and it makes it, and it's a good replacement for those that are on a no-fat diet. It almost tricks your palate into thinking that you're eating something in saturated fat, because that's what saturated fat does. That's the reason why we enjoy potato chips and fried foods and fried chicken, because the saturated fat coats our palate, and it gives us this euphoric feeling of, wow, I'm getting fat. I'm getting, not fat, physically fat, but I'm getting fat as in nutritional fat and things of that nature. So when you eat something with okra in it and it's stewed, that slimy texture almost mimics fat. It's not the same, but it mimics fat. So what you do is you add the okra, you cook all of it down, it makes it nice and stewy, it makes it all come together, and then you're going to make it West African. And the way you do that is by implementing those spices that I told you about, the cinnamons, the thymes, today I'm going to use red chili flakes, I'm going to use cinnamon, I'm going to use thyme, and it's here somewhere, yep, and I'm going to use black pepper medley, or if you can't find black pepper or peppercorn medley, it's called black peppercorn melange, and that's basically just the French term for medley. Okay, so I'm going to begin making this West African stew. Heat your pan. First thing you always want to do anytime you're making any kind of stews, sauces, stocks, anything, you always want to sweat your onions first. Because what happens is when you sweat your onions, and okay, let me go back. Sweating. When you add onions or any kind of onion, shallot, anything of the onion family to a hot pan, it releases natural sugars and juices and things of that nature. When you cook it slow and you release those juices, and the onion turns transparent. It's called sweating. What it does is it amplifies the flavor of your dish. It adds a certain sweetness to it. Have you ever had something and it just tastes way too oniony? That oniony flavor is that because they didn't allow the natural juices to start breaking those things down and making it more mellow and sweet. It's kind of raw. So what you want to do is make sure that the pan is hot. A touch of olive oil, not much oil at all, just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. You're gonna throw your onions in. You can move that around. Okay. Now another question: how many of us are familiar with? Has anyone ever eaten West African food before? Yeah. And now, granted, just like any other cuisine, it's not like this dish is the tell-all, be-all of West African food. There's a trillion different variations of different things that you can have that are of West African influence. Most of the food that you've eaten, as I stated earlier, in terms of the Indian food, has West African influence and all of those other different things in terms of how they use ingredients. So, what I'm doing here, as I stated before, I'm sweating my onions. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going to go full throttle with sweating them completely. I'm just going to go about halfway with them. But you can already see now, the onions that were white are turned a little bit clear. That's because it's starting to release those juices. And for those that missed the dissertation earlier today, what starts to happen is that as the sugars start to release themselves, and you cook them and saute them, they start to turn brown. That brownness is called caramelization. You need that in terms of imparting flavor into anything that you're making. You want that to start turning brown. You don't want it to start turning black. Brown. And you only want to add just a tiny bit of oil, because if you add too much oil, you'll be frying your onions as opposed to sauteing them. So just a little bit of onion, maybe a teaspoon at the bottom of the pan, just to get the onions started. Once the onions get started, they'll release their own juices to continue cooking. So let that go. You'll start to see it turn brown. As that's going, I'm going to add my celery. Put in my carrots. And just another term. Onion, celery, and carrots in the culinary world is called mirepoix. Everyone heard of mirepoix before? Mirepoix? Okay. Mirepoix is like a soup starter. That's like, so basically if you've been to a restaurant, you had any kind of chowder, any kind of minestrone, any kind of soup, or mostly stocks and sauces, all have carrot, celery, and onion in it. That's kind of the base flavor components that create French cuisine. Now, the West African influence has peppers in it. They have a lot of peppers in their diet. They use peppers in just about everything that they make that I've seen. And they use it as paste, they puree it, they use it as a thickening agent. They use it in a lot of different ways. But just for your own knowledge, carrot, celery, and onion are the base for dressing. It's the base for gravy. It's the base for soup. It's the base for a sauce. You know? So, it's very versatile. Tastes delicious. And, yeah, it's just one of those staples and one of those foundational ingredients, components that you need to create good flavor or stew or stock. You need that trinity of the carrot, celery, and onion. And for the sake of West African influence, peppers as well. Has anyone heard of a parsnip before? Parsnip, two in the house, parsnip. Parsnip is basically a carrot that when it grew out of the ground, they packed dirt around it so that it didn't get any sunlight, so that it didn't have the possibility of going through any photosynthesis. Mm-hmm. Photosynthesis, right? Yeah. It wasn't able to. It didn't color. Obviously carrots get their color from the sun because they bury it. Basically, it's grown underground. That's why it's white. It has a slightly different flavor than regular carrots. It has more of a milder, sweet flavor as opposed to the this is gonna sound redundant, as opposed to the more carroty flavor of the red one. This one, if you ate it, you wouldn't be able to identify it immediately that it was a carrot, especially if it's cooked. Whereas a carrot tastes like a carrot when you eat it. This is a little bit like, what is that? That tastes different. It could possibly be a turnip. It could possibly be diced rutabaga, because it has a more of a milder sweet flavor to it. But we're gonna add this to it as well. And as you do any research on West African cooking, they cook with sweet potatoes a lot. And Jamaican food, and Indian food, and anything that has West African influence cooks with a lot of sweet potatoes and peppers in their dishes. So I'm adding this to it too. Then we're gonna add my diced tomatoes. You just move this all around. Let me just be happy together in the pan. And then I am going to add vegetable stock to this. Can you use chicken stock? Absolutely. Could you use beef broth if you wanted to? Absolutely. You need some kind of broth or stock, or if you just want to use water, it'd still come out just fine. But for the sake of the demonstration today, I'm going to use Emerald's vegetable stock. It doesn't have to be Emerald's, it could be anybody that you want it to be. Everything that I'm using here today is indeed sold in this store, so you don't have to feel, well, does it have to be Emerald's, or where do I get it from? It's all sold right here in Lafayette Market. So.
We also want to encourage you to fill out the surveys, the evaluations. If you're interested in getting recipes, Facebook, McKinney Foundation, blogs, as well as the newsletter and emails that they send out. Any questions?
We have the mirepoix there.
Yes. Yes. The mirepoix is what I added first. That's the onion, celery, and carrots.
Oh, that's the mixture.
Yep, the mixture is together is mirepoix. Yep. So if you see it in a recipe and it says mirepoix, it's not like, well, where am I gonna buy that at? I don't know. They don't sell mirepoix at my grocery store. It's just carrot, celery, and onions. That's it.
Here you are.
Good question. Good question.
So you just let that come to a rolling boil, and then what you're gonna do is this. You can do it one of two ways. You can either A, while your onions and celery and carrots and things are going, you can do what I call toasting the spices. Typically I do that when I want more of a robust flavor, and I want it to be bold, and like I know for an absolute fact that I'm really in the mood for some really bold, flavor. Sometimes you're kind of really not in the mood for bold flavors. You kind of want milder kind of flavors, and for the sake of the audience, I don't know what the mood you guys are all in, so I'm going to go on the milder sense. If you wanted to make those flavors pop, you would add all of your dry spices in early on while you were sauteing the onions and carrots and celery and peppers, and you would allow that to kind of start to brown a little bit with the onions and celery, and toast those spices, and then add your liquid ingredients and then bring it to a boil. So, yeah. At this point, I'm going to start adding my spices. And I know it's going to look like I'm just throwing stuff together right now, but the recipe will be on the website, and it will be on the blogs. So, and this is another thing I love to imply. Never feel constrained to a recipe. I say it every time I do a dissertation. Do not feel that because I used cinnamon, you have to use cinnamon. You can use nutmeg if you want. You can use coriander if you want. You can use whatever you want to achieve the flavors that you like. I'm merely just showing you the cooking method. My whole job here is to get you, the customer, the consumer, to start cooking healthier at home. Don't be discouraged if you can't find organic chicken stock by Emerald. Like, it's chicken broth. Just buy some chicken broth. Or get a chicken, put some water in it, bring it to a boil, and make your own broth. It's not difficult. It's very easy, and the more that you understand the theory behind it, you will understand that it's very simplistic to eat healthy at home. all of our palates are driven on texture and flavor and temperature. So you may want something cold, spicy, and crunchy. You may want something soft, hot, and salty. It just depends. And playing off of those three things, there's an infinite amount of possibilities to create flavors. So please, have fun with the recipes. If you want to add peas to this, by all means. If you want to add white potatoes to it, by all means. If you want to add apples to it, whatever you like, put it in there. You know, because at the end of the day, it's about cooking healthy. And as long as you're eating fresh, you can eat as much as you want. You don't have to feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have eaten that, I overate. You can eat this whole pot and feel good tomorrow. I promise you. How many calories? Well, I don't know exactly how many calories this is right here. If I had to guess, I would say a serving, an 8-ounce serving, is probably somewhere in the ballpark of about 90 calories.
Less than 100.
110.
What's the recommendation for serving size? Because that's a good question that you asked.
I'd say an 8-ounce serving. A 7 to 8 ounce serving is I guess fair for an adult, maybe.
It depends on how you make it as well. Everything you use have different serving size and different calories. So depending on if you pay attention to the nutrition label of everything that you add in there, look at the serving size and kind of measure what you put in there, and that's how you can kind of determine how much your meal is as far as the calories.
And then too, if you're eating fresh, I would concern myself with calories.
Yeah, that's another thing.
You know,
right.
if you're eating a hamburger from McDonald's, I would worry about calories. But I don't think that your doctor will ever say, listen, man, you're eating too many vegetables and fruits.
Right.
You should stop.
Exactly.
You know, you can never do that. So I don't think, yeah, as long as you're eating fresh, go crazy. Eat as much as you want. Any other questions? Okay. So I'm adding my cinnamon in. And you want the cinnamon to add just a certain aroma to it. You don't want it to taste it and go, is that cinnamon in? No, you want it to be in the background. You want, cinnamon, I'm here, like really faint in the background. You don't want it to be up front. So you can put this amount, you look at it, just like when you add salt to something. You don't just start dumping in salt. You look at it and go, okay, this amount needs about this much salt. So you judge it the same way. Because of this amount, I'm just going to add just a little pinch of cinnamon. That's all I want. I just want the aromatic of it. Add some thyme. Alright. The red chili flake. And a little bit of salt. And please, my people, watch your sodium intake. Do not overdo it with the salt. A little bit goes a long way if you cook it the right way. I think that we've become accustomed to over-seasoning our foods just based on culture, and that's something that's detrimental to our health in terms of blood pressure and controlling good blood flow in our bodies. So, just a tidbit, has nothing to do with this food necessarily, except we should really watch our sodium intake. But there be no other questions? Anyone for questions? All right. Well, that's been my presentation of the West African vegetable stew. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's more over there if you want to try some. And please, if you have any questions, please contact us at McKinneyFoundation.org. And I'm Chef Chris.
Thank you very much. If you like what you've seen, we'll be back in December 9th, which is a Sunday, and we'll be back later in the day. We do have flyers on the website. We'll be here at 3 to 3:30 and 4:30 to 5, December 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you.